Hello, this is Jyotika. Welcome to Excelling Psychology. In today's class, which is a second class in my series of core studies for the AS new syllabus, I will be addressing the study by Hassett et al. In the previous video, I have addressed the study by 𝗣𝗦𝗬𝗖𝗛𝗏 and 𝗪𝗏𝗏𝗧𝗏. You might be wondering why directly I'm coming to questions and answers, why I'm not explaining the content of the study. What my approach is towards these videos, I have explained in the last video. Also, what is my approach when I take classes with students, that also I have explained in the last video. So if you're interested in any of that, please watch the previous video. In this class, directly I'm going to begin explaining the question answers, how we write the answers for Hassett et al. Study. Also, in this video, unlike the previous one, I will be focusing more on the content of the answers as well. Okay, so first question that can come from this study is outline the aim of the study. Most of the questions I've taken in this video are from past papers. I'm saying most, not all, because unlike 𝗣𝗦𝗬𝗖𝗛𝗏 and 𝗪𝗏𝗏𝗧𝗏, for this study, we don't have enough questions in past papers since it's a new study in the syllabus. So the remaining questions I have formulated on my own according to how they are asked in the paper. Okay, as far as the aim of the study is concerned, this is a purely descriptive question. You could take two approaches here. Either you could memorize the aim directly from the textbook and write, which is not very advisable because how much are you going to memorize after all? Understand and write what is the general purpose of the study, that would be better. So in your mind, when you see what is the aim of the study, you could think, why did Hassett et al. Do this study? What were they trying to establish? Or what was the general purpose of doing this study? Here many students write the aim in terms of, they wanted to compare the toy preferences of male and female monkeys to see whether males like wheeled toys and females like plush toys. No doubt that is correct, but think about the broader purpose, why they were doing this study. They were not doing this study to establish what toys monkeys like. By using monkeys, they wanted to establish what toys humans like, and more than that, they wanted to establish that these preferences are a result of biological factors like male and female hormones, testosterone and estrogen, not because of socialization. That should come about in the aim of Hassett et al. Study. In the aim, we always talk about why a study is being done. So the study was not being done for the monkey's sake. The researchers in psychology were never interested in animal behavior. With the help of animals, we want to understand human behavior. So the target is always humans. So always speak in those terms, even for animal studies. Okay, that is all I can advise for the aim of this study. Let's come to the next question. Name two features of the sample used in the study. This is a very straightforward question, and this has to be rote, learnt and written. Some students, what they do here is they mix up 2 or 3 features into one. They just roll up 2-3 features into one. For example, they would say that there were 135 rhesus monkeys living in the troop. That actually becomes 2 points, though it sounds like 1, because one has to do with the species of the monkeys, that they are rhesus monkeys. The second has to do with the total number in the troop. Doesn't matter, you can answer that way. I know it can be confusing to segregate and say which is 1 point and which is resulting into 2 points. So it's okay, don't worry about those things. Just make sure that at a minimum you're covering 2 features. So one feature I've covered here is that they're all rhesus monkeys. So for stating the species, I would get 1 mark. Another feature is that in the troop, there were both adult and infant monkeys. So this counts as a second feature. In any study, if they ask for the sample, there are many possibilities of what you can cover. You will notice in every course study, lots of features are given of every sample. There's an entire descriptive paragraph which is there. So undoubtedly, everyone can have different answers here. One thing is a confusion between sample and sampling technique. Here if you say that opportunity sample was used, that's absolutely correct and you'll get a mark for that. That does count as a feature. The only thing you have to be careful about is not to get into too much description of why it's an opportunity sample, or trying to give strengths and weaknesses of opportunity sampling. I know that sounds obvious, but we see mistakes like these being made, so I'm just warning you against it. Okay, another question is describe 2 controls maintained in the study. These type of questions are like a combination of descriptive and evaluative questions. The command term is describe, so it would seem like purely descriptive in the sense you just have to know 2 controls and just state them. But if you see, the marks allotted are 4. So they're asking you for 2 controls and they are giving 2 marks per control. So definitely it's not going to be just about stating the control in a line. It's also going to be about further elaborating and saying why that control was maintained in the study. So you will have to show some reasoning. Majority of students answer these questions just by naming the controls, which is a wrong approach. You also need to reason out why that control was maintained. So one control was that monkeys were kept indoors and the toys were arranged as the toys were arranged for any trials. This is stating the control, or this is naming it. This gives us 1 mark. For the second mark, we justify one stem or one template you could remember for justifying a control is this was done to prevent. It will fit into most cases. So okay, now I've said the monkeys were kept indoors when the researchers were arranging the toys for the trials. Now I need to ask myself a very simple question. But why? What was the need to keep them indoors? So this was done to prevent the monkeys from damaging or displacing toys. I don't know how this has got left incomplete, so I'll just complete it here, which would make it impossible to conduct the trials. Okay, so that's how I get a second mark, by reasoning out why this was done. Also, I can see they've asked for 2 controls. The second one has got cut out here. In Hassett et al. Study, there are many controls. I'll just write one more quickly. As such, there is counterbalancing, which is a control. Also, the recording being done through cameras rather than human observers standing there, which would distract the monkeys. I'm sure there are many right now off my head. These are some which are coming to my mind. So let me take counterbalancing. So I would say another control is counterbalancing of wheeled and plush toys was done on every trial from left to right positioning. Okay, so this is again just stating the control, but where's the reasoning or where's the justification? So again I have to think why did they have to do this? So like I said, the stem I could use is this was done to prevent the positioning of the toys from becoming a reason for their preference rather than their nature. Controls are actually written in a very standard format. If you see, this is done to prevent something, like I said, and it is actually, it's very formulaic, to prevent dash extraneous variable from becoming a reason for the dependent variable rather than dash independent variable. It's all about practice. The more you practice writing, actually it's very easy to write controls and to justify. Students feel naming controls is easy, justification is difficult. There isn't anything like this. As you write, you'll realize there's a standard way of writing. So as I've mentioned in the previous video also, there's no substitute for practice of answer writing. So I would like to emphasize that again with this answer. Okay, let's look at the next question. This is also an evaluative type of question. Two friends, Punj and Raghu, are discussing the study by Hassett et al. In terms of generalizing to everyday life. Punj believes the study is generalizable to everyday life, but Raghu believes that the study is not generalizable. Outline why you think either Punj or Raghu is correct using evidence from the study. Okay, now there are some pointers to write this answer well. First is to note the marks as always. 4 marks means you need to justify in detail. Most students will answer this question in 2 sentences. For example, they'll say, I think Raghu is right because the monkeys were domesticated, whereas wild monkeys live in the jungle. Firstly, that does not explain anything. It does not show any reasoning. Second, it does not address the question. The question is not about sample to population generalizability. It is about generalizing to everyday life. Means it's about the settings in which the study was done, not the monkeys. Also, it does not justify 4 marks in any way. If you were the examiner, would you award 4 marks for this answer? Be honest. Okay, now how to go about writing this answer? First, don't beat around the bush. Directly address whom you are supporting. So I think Raghu is correct because the findings are not generalizable. That is how the answer should begin. In case you're siding with Punj, because both possibilities are there, then you begin with I think Punj is correct because the findings are generalizable to everyday life. First you answer the question directly. Why? Why not answer in the conclusion? Always write your answer from the examiner's perspective, the one who has to read the answer. When the student directly addresses in the beginning whom they are supporting, it becomes very easy for the examiner to read the answer. Then they just need to keep checking, okay, the student is saying they support Raghu. Do the remaining points show that they are indeed supporting Raghu, or are the points conflicting with their support? Now imagine if you have not specified that you are supporting Raghu or Punj, the examiner has to keep on reading with every sentence, keep on guessing who is being supported because that has not been stated. It's very difficult to read that way. An example is when you read your textbook, they tell you in the evaluation, one strength of Hassett et al. Study is that many controls were maintained. Do they begin with counterbalancing was done in the study? The toys were positioned left or right, and then in the end they tell you it was a control. Why do they tell you right at the beginning? I know these are basic paragraphing principles, but they're very important. Students have lost sight of writing actually. They've lost the skill of writing. You begin directly so that the rest of the answer can be connected with the first point and it can make sense easily. The examiner does not have to keep on putting effort to understand what you have written and to try to connect. The examiner's work is to award you marks, not to decrypt your answer. Okay, so write from that point of view. So first thing, directly address who's being supported. Second thing, address the question. Okay, why I'm saying this, however obvious it might seem, here you know what is getting tested? Your basic knowledge of methodological concepts. Are you able to distinguish between generalizing from sample to population and generalizing from research setting to everyday life setting? Because if you write an answer in terms of either domesticated monkeys are not the same as wild monkeys, there you're confusing generalizability to everyday life with generalizability to the population. Or if you write then monkeys are different from humans, you are confusing extrapolation from animals to humans with generalizability to everyday life. So second thing is address the question, talk about everyday life, talk about the settings in which the study was conducted and how those artificial settings do not resemble everyday settings for monkeys, which is the wild or which is the jungle. Talk about that. So here what I have mentioned in the answer is that the monkeys were from the 𝗧𝗪𝗧 research station. Now what is the setting there? There are restricted spaces, there is limited interaction with a single troop, and there is lack of opportunity for exploration, foraging and just looking around. That makes the monkeys bored. The settings are boring. There is absence of natural stimulation. So I'm going on describing the setting, because in everyday life questions, settings are relevant. So I'm going on describing that, and okay, now that I've said that, I need to explain further. So what, or why does this all matter? So now I need to compare with what everyday settings are. In everyday settings, wild monkeys might not have any special interest in the toys because they have enough natural stimulation, they have enough to explore, such that the toys might not mean anything special to them like they meant in this study. Okay, so that is how I explain. How we answer these type of questions is, first we point out some limitation in the study, like in terms of the sample, the setting, whatever has been asked for relevantly. And then we compare with how it is different in the population or in the real setting. And then we say, okay, this is why findings from this artificial setting cannot generalize to the real settings. At this point, some students would tell me, but that doesn't matter. Like, even if it does not apply to the wild monkeys, it does apply to humans. Always keep your thinking clear and straight. What are they asking you about? They're asking you about everyday life. Why are you confusing issues so much? Why have you started thinking about extrapolation when that is not what is asked for over here? Students go many times beyond the answer. I understand. It's good to think beyond what is given. It expands your critical thinking, but not at the cost of getting confused and just straying away and losing sight of what is being actually done in the answer. Okay, so it's good to think otherwise, but not by confusing issues with each other. So when it's about everyday life, stick to everyday life. But this happens, but that happens because of this. Don't be unnecessarily argumentative. No doubt the study's ultimate goal is extrapolation, but every question is not about that. Okay, so how you answer this question, I'll just quickly recap. First, you address the question directly. All following points give evidence for why you have chosen that side. Systematically, you keep on pointing out what it is about the monkey setting that is unusual from everyday setting, and then you explain why their setting makes it difficult to generalize to that everyday setting. Actually, it is as simple as that. Okay, let's come to the next set of questions. The next one again is evaluative. Explain one methodological weakness of this study. This is again evaluative because they want a weakness. Strengths and weaknesses questions are all evaluative. The major mistake students make here is they would give an ethical weakness instead of a methodological one. Two types of strengths and weaknesses are there broadly in the syllabus. Methodological has anything to do with literally what is in the procedure or method of every study. So sample, control, standardization, depending on which type of study it is. Any physiological measurement, operationalization of the dependent variable on the independent variable. Those all and others are methodological concerns. Ethical concerns are strictly with your 8 ethical guidelines, which are there if anything is going wrong, then that would become an ethical concern. So major things students do, they confuse with ethical concerns. Second thing is, this is for 2 marks. So one methodological weakness means strictly 1. What happens when answering questions like these? Because students' general approach throughout every study is just to factually memorize what is there, they mention a weakness. So student would say, okay, there was the weakness, like I have mentioned here. Standardized procedure was broken on one trial because one monkey just ripped apart a plush toy. Then they don't know how to explain this, because when they were learning the content, they didn't think only about why this is a problem or why this is weakness. They just learned it factually. Okay, this happened. Then what happened next? They see that there are 2 marks. And they realize that one sentence would not be enough, or just pointing out wouldn't be enough. I need to gain the 2nd mark. So what they do is they give a second weakness. So one more weakness was that the sample was small. Immediately when you give a second weakness, when only one is asked for, this is disregarded by the examiner. You don't score anything for giving this. Okay, so there's no point, leave it. If you don't know, An elaboration, leave it. Ideally you should have learned the elaboration for everything, but if you don't know at all, leave it. Don't give a second weakness. It's just a waste of your time, and the examiner has nothing to do with the second weakness. Okay, another thing about this answer is, again, I can't emphasize enough, for every answer address the question directly. They've asked you for a weakness. One of the monkeys ripped apart the toy because of that, this, that, but you're not saying what is the weakness. Don't go about that way. First say weakness is that standardized procedure was compromised. Don't come to it at the end. Never give a point as the conclusion. Give a point as the first starting. Okay, I've explained the Peel format in many videos. Today I don't intend to go in it, but everywhere that is only what we follow. Okay, so now coming back to the answer, there is a standardized procedure. There is a disruption of standardized procedure. The monkey ripped apart the toy. Because of that, what happened? One of the trials got shortened to 18 minutes, whereas all the other trials were 25 minutes. So that could reduce reliability of results because uneven duration of trials. So we just need to explain that. Actually, the explanation is simple. The thing is about how deeply you have processed what you have read in the lesson. The next question is again, actually it's more AO2 type application, one real world application of the study. So this is coming from issues and debates. For the issues and debates type of questions, answers are very straightforward. Again, just to name a point, one application is designing toys for children. Most students write these type of answers well, application to everyday life, so I don't have much to say. The only thing is not confusing with generalizability somehow. Application to everyday life, they take it as a application, the generalizability from laboratory settings to field settings. That's not what they're asking you for. Application to everyday life just means practical usefulness. So they want to know where literally we could use the findings of the study. How does it help us? Okay, so think in those terms. Like I said, I don't have anything much to say. The only other thing I can say is be concrete. Give a concrete example preferably to make it clear what application you're talking about. Like here, one example is that since boys like to play with activity enabling toys, they like to play with wheel toys. That's what we see in this study. Parents, of course, would want rounded development of their children. So they wouldn't want boys just to play with wheel toys and develop activity. They would also want them to develop empathy. So what they can do is give them wheel toys with faces carved on them so that they can think about the feelings of the toys when they play with it, and that would help them boost their empathy. Things like that. So here the only thing worth noting is that this is a concrete example. Instead of saying, oh, parents should give toys to the boys which would encourage their empathy, the examiner would think how, because the boy is not going to choose a toy which would encourage empathy. So you need to specify exactly how for clarity. Okay, this type of question also comes for 2 marks. They can ask more than one applications. They often do that. Maximum they ask 2. So for every study, prepare and keep 2 applications with concrete examples. Next is give one strength of using animals as participants in the study. This would also come for 2 marks. Again, evaluation because a strength is asked for. In this study, the reasoning is very obvious and it is core to the study. Why have they used monkeys instead of humans? Because that's the first question that comes to mind. If they want to talk about human children, why have they used monkeys? They've given very clear reasoning for that. They wanted to distinguish whether toy preferences in children come from biological factors or socialization. Now the problem is that in human children, these 2 factors cannot be separated because they are going hand in hand. Their biological factors like hormones also affecting their behavior at the same time when what they are learning from others in society is also affecting them. But when it comes to monkeys, they are not socialized. They don't undergo socialization process like humans. They might have their different type of socialization, but they have no communication in which they are taught that boys should be boys and girls should be girls. So that is something we can separate out from them. And then any preference which they show has to be because of biological factors only. So that's what we have to explain here. again, there's not much to discuss in terms of how to write this answer, but what comes to my mind is here also be very direct. Like there will be students saying, okay, because animals are not socialized, and then they're not able to explain further. So if they're not socialized, then what? Complete whatever you write. Because they are not socialized, whatever preference they have is because of biological factors. That can be assumed. Don't write half answers, don't write incomplete answers. Whatever reasoning you give, take it till the end. That is all I can advise. Okay, these type of questions are actually very easy, but students make a lot of mistakes and they lose out 8 marks, easy 8 marks, because of the mistakes that they make. The question is, explain one similarity and one difference between 𝗤𝗏𝗫𝗫𝗀𝗏 and Hassett study. I've taken these two for comparison because I've already covered 𝗤𝗏𝗫𝗫𝗀𝗏 in the previous video. Why I'm saying that these are easy marks? Because there are so many possibilities to answer from. For comparison, that is similarity or difference, you have methodological issues, ethical issues, issues and debates. You have descriptive points, direct descriptive comparisons from one study to another. If we go to write down how many things are similar or different, I'm sure you would find in total somewhere more than 15 or 20 points that you could compare two studies on. That's why I'm saying it's very easy, because whatever points you are comfortable with, like some students are better at descriptive points, some are better at evaluative. Here you're free to take whichever you want. So that is what helps you. Okay, here what I could advise is, for organization, keep the paragraph on similarity separate and difference separate. Again, thinking from examiner's point of view, easy to understand the answer that way, to know which paragraph is talking about what. Mention right at the beginning, this is a similarity paragraph, name the similarity, and then begin comparing. I hope looking at my videos now, you're able to see a trend, or you're able to see the format of writing. Always we begin with the direct point and then we go to elaborate on that point, right? Nothing new. So first I name the similarity. In terms of nature versus nurture, it is nature that is supported in both studies. This in fact I've taken because it's such an easy point. When you have biological approach, you know all studies are supporting nature. So that's the best point for comparison in terms of similarity. Likewise, if you have social approach, you know all those studies support nurture. So nurture would be such a good point to begin with. Now what mistakes students would make is, after saying that they both support nature, they would give very brief reasoning for why they support nature, like because in 𝗤𝗏𝗫𝗫𝗀𝗏 they were investigating sleep, and in Hassett et al. They were investigating hormones. How are you justifying 4 marks by talking so briefly? Where's the elaboration? So that's one, the common problem which runs across all answers. Another problem is, I don't know why this one happens, just talking about one study. Like nature is supported in Hassett because of this. Why is it supported in 𝗤𝗏𝗫𝗫𝗀𝗏? That's missing. You know, so it's so easy to bifurcate the 4 marks and understand why you're getting 4 marks. One for naming the point. Second for elaborating on it generally. Third is for linking it to one study. And fourth is for linking it to the other study. I mean, it couldn't be simpler. Okay, the other way of thinking about it is just be as elaborate as you can, be as clear as you can. So here when I say one similarity is nature, then I specify that in 𝗤𝗏𝗫𝗫𝗀𝗏, it's nature because dreaming is attributed to REM stage of sleep. In REM stage, that occurs universally, like that is proof that it is nature because everyone is experiencing it, and therefore there is increased frequency of dreaming, and we would assume that's because of the natural cause, because everyone is showing that REM stage of sleep. So I need to explain that way. Again, if you are getting a little confused of what I'm talking about, you need to read the answer first before listening to what I'm saying. I will upload the answers again on my website. I'll put the link below in the description box and pinned comment. So if you're not able to follow through what I'm saying, you could download the answers there first, read them, or read along with this video, pause it, read, and then come back to the video if that helps you. I have to go fast, like I can't read out every word because I don't have that much time for the video. Okay, so that's how I'm justifying 𝗬𝗦𝗬𝗖𝗓 and 𝗫𝗫𝗫𝗫. When it comes to Hassett et al., how they have supported nature is they've spoken about hormones like testosterone and estrogen, which are naturally released in the human and animal body as being the reason for toy preferences. And I have further explained why testosterone would increase preference for wheel toys in male monkeys and why estrogen would increase preference for plush toys in female monkeys. So I've been as elaborate as possible. That is the only advice I can give you. Coming to the difference, format for difference is the same. First I name the difference. Here I have taken a very obvious one which I could find, measurement of the dependent variable. Why this came to my mind honestly is because in biological approach generally we are expecting some physiological measurement like equipment based. So you see that in 𝗬𝗫𝗫𝗧𝗏 EEG, you see that in 𝗧𝗨𝗜𝗚 with the brain scanning, MRI. You don't see it in Hassett. So that came out as a glaring glaring difference for me compared to the other biological studies. So I just picked up that one. In my mind, whatever comes across as most obvious or glaring, I like to pick that one because I find it easy to explain. There's so many other differences which are possible, which you could address. For example, one more which is very glaring is the use of human participants versus animal participants. Another is the subject of the study is different. Like in their case, it was about dreaming behavior, and in Hassett's case, it was about toy preferences. Now, one more thing, just I remembered when I was talking about this. In 𝗬𝗫𝗫𝗫𝗖𝗓, I know this video is not about that, but in 𝗬𝗫𝗫𝗫𝗫𝗫, there's a very strong tendency to confuse between sleeping and dreaming. Sleeping, there is a cause, in the sense that we are saying the participants are dreaming during REM stage of sleep. Dreaming is the behavior which has been studied. Dreaming is not the cause, or it's not that they're studying sleeping. They were studying dreaming. So be very clear on the difference between sleeping and dreaming, and what is their target and what is their dependent variable in the study. Because though it's very obvious, students keep confusing. And that also reminds me, whenever we talk about something like nature, and we are saying that nature is causing some behavior, students will not make it clear which is the behavior and which is the natural factor which is causing that behavior. How they'll muddle the issue is, okay, this is supporting nature because they have looked into sleep. Sleep in relation to what? Like, why is a researcher looking at a natural factor? Obviously to explain some behavior, but you're not talking about dreaming at all. You're just saying sleeping. Always when it comes to, I just want to digress a little from the topic, but it's important. Always when it comes to nature side of the debate, individual side of the debate, okay, because as of now, this year you have only 2 debates as such, but this will really help you in A2 where you have multiple debates. Nature or individual, situational or nurture, whatever it is, these are explanations of behavior. So in a study, when you say in Hassett et al., toy preference is the behavior, you begin thinking from there. What's the behavior in the study? Toy preference. To what natural factor? Or if it was nurture, to what learning factor? If it was individual, to what personal factor? And if it was situational, to what environmental factor has this been attributed, or has this been explained in terms of? That is how you have to think. Okay, then there will be clarity. So it has been attributed to hormones. If I have to be more specific, level of activity created by hormones. What is this? Then you think, what is this? Is it a nature factor? Is it nurture? Is it individual? Is it situational? Students just don't know where to begin, like to begin with the behavior, then link it with the explanation, then to think about the explanation. Is the explanation supporting nature, nurture, individual or situation? Means in this basics, there is so much confusion that what they are writing fails to make sense. Okay, like I said, I can't go into much detail of this right now, but I want you to think about it. Okay, so keeping this in mind is how you justify nature versus nurture. Coming back to the second paragraph, so I gave a very glaring difference is in terms of measurement of the DV. Again, just elaboration in 𝗬𝗫𝗫𝗫𝗖𝗓, then how did they measure? Like whatever point I've made, I have to talk about that only. Okay, so I've said measurement is different. How was the measurement done in 𝗬𝗏 and 𝗧𝗏? It was done in terms of self-report. Participants had to report their dreams. How they had to report on audio recording devices. So that's a difference. Okay, if you want to talk about how they measured sleeping, in that case you could talk about the EEG machine. So that was recorded in terms of amplitude and frequency. But like I said, the main behavior is dreaming, not sleeping. That's why I've taken dreaming is measured in self-report. When it comes to the Hassett study, it was observation. Again, if you see within the answer also, like first I've named the difference, this point is the difference. Then within every topic also, first point, self-report, then explanation, how self-report, because of audio recording of dreams by participants themselves. Same when Hassett et al., first naming, observation, then why or how observation, elaborating. So always lot of clarity, point elaboration, that should go on throughout the answer. So now again, okay, how was observation done? Two observers were looking at monkeys' behaviors like holding, sitting, grabbing, etc. Okay, so very easy to score 4 marks per paragraph and get a total of 8. These type of questions come on paper 1, what I've addressed so far, description, application and evaluation. Paper 4 is about research methods. Today I've taken only one question possible from Hassett et al. There are so many, no one can make all the permutations. But why I've taken this one to also combine into this data analysis. Okay, Hassett et al. Measured toy preferences. Here they've given us a table which shows what the results were. Whenever you have a table in front of you, first understand what the table is about. So that we've already seen in the questions about toy preferences. Then read the column headings. So column 1 is about male monkeys, column 2 is about female monkeys. Then read the row heading. Row is about percentage preference for wheeled toys. Then read what is given in the data in the intersections of the rows and columns, 73 and 30. So this is what you need to represent. Okay, now again very important to read the requirements of the question. You have to draw a bar chart of the data on the axis provided, that means on this graph which is given here. You're not allowed to make a separate graph elsewhere, and you must label the axis. Again, in a haste, out of stress or tension, students just read till here. They're just not going to read this part. Read the question entirely, because definitely if you don't do this part, you're losing 2 marks. 1 mark is for labeling x-axis, 1 is for labeling y. Okay, so unnecessarily because of carelessness of not reading, you're going to lose marks. Literally, students are there who don't even wonder why this is blank, I should write something. They just leave it blank and then later they say they didn't read the question. So don't make silly mistakes. This is coming for 4 marks. Okay, bar type of question. See, you should be accurate. Ultimately, your bar height should be different, and they should be different in proportion of the actual differences which are there. But just one thing, take it in the correct spirit. They don't really go by like fine measurement of what you have drawn. Okay, so you don't need to worry. That's all I'm saying. Worry too much about is 1 millimeter according to what it should be. That's not very important. Worry about the graph making sense. That's all. Okay, so what you should do in a graph type of question, first just draw the x and y axis. Always begin from there. Precision should be there, but not extreme precision. That's all I can say. Label x and y. Again, readability. Just like in answers, they should make sense to the examiner, even the graph. So mark x and y, mark the 0 point. Label the axis. You're required to label the axis anyway. It will help you also make sense to you. On a bar graph, categories are always on the x-axis. Here we have 2 categories which indicate the sex of the monkeys. So we know 1 bar is going to be for male monkeys, 1 is going to be for female. So good name for x-axis is sex of monkeys. Many times in the paper itself they give you a name. So in that case you won't even have to think about it. Y-axis you will always have on a bar graph the measurement which is there. So here it is. Percentage preference for wheeled toys. I'm just copying what is given on the table. Okay, here we have scored 2 marks by giving the x and y axis label. Of course, in the x label also the names of the bars will count, the labeling of the bars. Okay, now what we can do, because it's percentage, we can try to go right up to 100. Okay, if we can't, at least we should try to go up to 80 or something. Like I'm assuming a scale of 10, just because that would be convenient. I mean, going up to 73 is a little difficult. The number is quite huge. So then let me take a scale of 10. I could even take 20. What I can do first, I can count how many squares are there roughly. Like I'm taking 5 centimeter as one square. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, I think 20 would be better for scaling. The graph is really small. In AQA we have proper graph papers, that's much more helpful. Anyways. Okay, so let me take 20% like scaling. Okay, and x-axis I will take male monkeys and female. Like 1 bar for each. Now if you're wondering, but if I'm taking 20 on the scale and then my height, will it go exactly to 73? That's why I said don't worry too much about the precision, be approximately accurate. So when it comes to the graph for male monkeys, I know it should come in between 60 and 80, and logically it should come more towards 80 because it's 73. That much is enough in terms of precision, just thinking about roughly where it should be. Okay, again I'm taking a 5 centimeter width of the bar, so I'll maintain that in the other one also. I personally just like to write the frequency on the top. It's up to you, you don't need to write, like the percentage 73 I've written on the top. If you want, you can skip that. No type of shading or dotting or anything is required. This is not a clustered graph, it's a simple graph, so I leave it blank. For females, the percentage is 30. Okay, also I'm making marks over here because I'm demonstrating things to you. Please don't make marks on your question paper. 30 should be between 20 and 40. In fact, it should be right in between. So that is how I'll try to place it. You can maintain any distance between 2 bars. Like I said, don't worry about those things. It's just that it should be uniform. Here we have 2 categories only. We don't need to worry about uniformity. Okay, so this is 30. Okay, so that is how I can make the bar. Okay, so that's it for this lesson. I don't have anything much to say about bar graph. I've demonstrated the whole drawing process to you, so I hope all the tips you have gotten that only on how to construct the bar graph. That's it for Hassett et al. Study. Of course, so many questions are possible, but I hope these give you an idea of how you should answer various types of questions. Keep practicing. That's the only way to score well in your CIE A-level psychology. And if you have any questions about what I've shown on this video, you could leave a comment in the comment box below. If you want to contact me for other purposes, I have given my contact details in the description box below. So that's the end of this class. I'll see you soon in another video. Goodbye.